It was an unusually warm fall afternoon in the heart of the city. The streets buzzed with the usual rhythm of honking cars, rushing pedestrians, and the occasional street performer. Amid the noise and haste, one man stood out, dressed in a worn jacket, his beard a little too long, and his eyes tired from a life lived on the streets. His name was Henry, and he'd seen more than his fair share of the harsh realities of life. But today was different. A sleek black car pulled up to the curb beside him, and the window rolled down slowly, revealing a man in his early 30s. He was impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, his hair neatly combed, and his eyes sharp, with an air of success about him. His name was Nathan Foster, a tech tycoon and founder of one of the most promising startups in the city. His company was on the brink of a major breakthrough, but despite all his wealth and success, he found himself at a crossroads. Nathan had everything anyone could ask for: money, status, connections, but something was missing. His ambition had taken him to the top, but now, in the silence of his private office, he realized that success didn't fill the void he felt inside. He felt disconnected, overwhelmed by the demands of his business, and unsure of his next move. That's when he spotted Henry, standing on the corner near his office building, gazing at the passing crowd. In that moment, Nathan had an idea, one that seemed crazy, but oddly fitting. Maybe the answer didn't lie in business meetings or billionaire think tanks. Maybe it was something simpler. Something from someone who had no stake in his world of profits and competition. "Hey, you got a minute?" Nathan called out to Henry, rolling down the window. Henry glanced over, a little surprised. It wasn't every day someone in a suit wanted to talk to him. He'd been on the streets long enough to know when someone was just passing by, ignoring his existence, but Nathan didn't look like he was just passing through. "Yeah? What's up?" Henry asked, his voice gruff but curious. Nathan took a deep breath. "I'm Nathan. I run a tech company in the city, and I've got a question for you. Something I can't quite figure out." Henry raised an eyebrow, confused. "A question? From me?" "Yeah," Nathan replied, his tone serious. "I know this might sound strange, but what do you think is the key to real success? Not just money or power, but real fulfillment. I've got everything I ever wanted, but I feel like I'm missing something important." Henry stared at him for a long moment. The rich man, the successful tycoon, was asking him for advice? It didn't make sense. But there was something in Nathan's eyes, something vulnerable, that made Henry pause. "Well," Henry said slowly, "I ain't got all the answers, but I can tell you this. You're chasing something that's always gonna run away from you. Real success ain't about what you have. It's about who you are when you don't have nothing." Nathan leaned in closer, intrigued by the simplicity of the words. "What do you mean?" Henry shrugged. "I've been on the streets for a long time, seen a lot of folks come and go. The ones that make it, they don't get caught up in the race. They know who they are, what they want, and they live with it. You, my friend, are too caught up in the noise. You can't hear the real answers over the sound of all that success." Nathan was silent for a moment. His mind raced. He had expected a quick, simple answer, but this was profound in its simplicity. Henry didn't talk like a philosopher, but his words carried weight. Nathan knew that. "Thanks," Nathan said quietly. "I needed to hear that." Henry nodded, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Don't mention it. Just remember what I said." As Nathan drove away, he couldn't help but think about the unexpected encounter. What Henry had said resonated deeper than anything he'd heard in his years of networking and business deals. For the first time in a long while, Nathan felt a sense of clarity that he hadn't expected to find on the cold city streets. But what would happen next? The next few days were a blur for Nathan. The words Henry had spoken to him echoed in his mind constantly, distracting him during meetings, during meals, even when he tried to sleep. He couldn't shake the feeling that his life had been off track for years, rushing from one business deal to the next, accumulating wealth and status, but never stopping to think about what it all really meant. Nathan tried to focus on his work, but his mind wandered back to the homeless man on the street. Henry's simplicity, his peace in not chasing the elusive more, was haunting. Was he truly content with his life? Nathan wondered if that kind of peace was what he'd been searching for all along. But how could he get it? How could someone with everything be at peace with so little? One evening, while scrolling through his phone, Nathan made a decision. He needed to do something out of the ordinary, something meaningful. Without telling anyone, Nathan had his driver take him back to the corner where he had met Henry. The city was alive with the usual nighttime bustle, bright lights, honking cars, and people rushing by. But there, standing under a street lamp, was Henry, the same worn jacket, the same tired eyes. Nathan parked the car and stepped out, approaching him slowly. Henry looked up, recognizing Nathan immediately. "Back again, huh?" Henry said, his voice tinged with curiosity. Nathan smiled slightly. "Yeah, I've been thinking about what you said. I'm here because I need to do something." Henry raised an eyebrow. "Do something? Like what?" Nathan took a deep breath. "I want to give you something that might change things for you." Henry looked confused. "What do you mean?" Nathan pulled out a check from his coat pocket and handed it to Henry. "I know it's not much, but it's something I think you deserve. This is for you, to help you get back on your feet." Henry took the check, still unsure of what was happening. "I don't need charity, man." Nathan nodded. "I know, and I'm not offering it as charity. Think of it as a chance, a way for you to do something with the wisdom you've got. This is an investment in your potential." Henry looked at Nathan, his expression unreadable. For a long moment he didn't speak. Then he looked down at the check again, this time seeing the amount written on it. His eyes widened in disbelief. "Wait a minute," Henry muttered, his voice cracking. "You're serious, aren't you?" Nathan nodded. "Yeah, I am. I think you've got more to offer the world than you realize." Henry slowly folded the check and tucked it into his pocket. "I don't know what to say. This is way too much. I mean, I've been down and out for years. Never thought I'd see a day like this." Nathan gave a small smile. "Just use it wisely. And if you ever feel like talking, you know where to find me." Henry stared at Nathan, his mind racing. For years, he had seen people pass by him, ignoring his existence, treating him like he was invisible. But now, a man who had everything, who could afford to throw money around, was offering him not just a handout, but an opportunity. A chance to make a difference in his life. You don't have to do this, man," Henry said, his voice thick with emotion. "But I won't forget this. I promise you that." Nathan placed a hand on his shoulder. "I'm not doing this for recognition. I'm doing it because I believe you have something valuable to offer. Maybe you'll find what you need, too." With a final nod, Nathan turned and walked back to his car. As he got in and the driver pulled away, he felt a sense of satisfaction he hadn't expected. The weight of his wealth and success still felt heavy, but somehow, this small gesture had lightened it. He had given something to someone who needed it, and in return, he had gained a little more clarity about himself. But Henry's reaction stayed with him, and it was then that Nathan realized his journey was far from over. This encounter, this chance meeting, had just opened a new chapter in both of their lives. What Henry would do with the gift was yet to be seen, but for Nathan, it felt like the first step toward finding the peace he had been missing all along. Months passed, and Nathan went on with his life. He focused more on his company, but he felt something had shifted inside him. He wasn't just chasing success anymore. He was thinking about legacy, purpose, and the deeper meaning behind his work. The change wasn't dramatic, but it was noticeable. He was less stressed, more present, and surprisingly more connected with those around him. Then, one afternoon, Nathan was in a meeting with his team when his assistant came in with an unexpected visitor. "Mr. Foster, there's someone here to see you. Says he's a friend." Nathan's first instinct was to ask who it was, but then he saw a familiar face through the glass. It was Henry, the homeless man he'd met months earlier. He stood up, startled but intrigued. He excused himself from the meeting and made his way to the lobby, where Henry waited. "Henry," Nathan said, offering a genuine smile. "I didn't expect to see you here. What's going on?" Henry stood there, looking more put together than Nathan had ever seen him before. His clothes were cleaner, and he had a kind of calm confidence that was unmistakable. "Hey, man," Henry said, his voice more steady than before. "I've been meaning to thank you, and I thought this was a good time to show you how much your offer really meant." Nathan motioned for him to sit down, and the two of them made their way to a nearby lounge. Henry had a small bag with him, but otherwise seemed lighter than Nathan remembered. "You look different," Nathan said, settling into a chair. "In a good way." Henry smiled. "Yeah, well, things have been changing for me. That check you gave me wasn't just money, it was a lifeline. But it was more than that, too. It gave me the chance to focus on what really matters. I started thinking about the future, and for the first time in a long time, I thought maybe I could make something of myself." Nathan raised an eyebrow. "That's great to hear, Henry. What did you do with it?" Henry leaned forward. "I invested in myself. Got a place to stay, cleaned myself up, and started volunteering at a local shelter. I got involved with a few community projects. People are starting to see me in a new light. I'm not perfect, but I'm better. I'm giving back, and it feels good. Better than any paycheck I ever got." Nathan nodded, impressed. "I'm glad to hear that. It's not always easy to change, especially when you're used to surviving, not living." Henry paused, looking thoughtful. "It wasn't easy, no. But I realized something along the way. I didn't need to keep surviving. I needed to start living for real. And I've got you to thank for that." Nathan felt a lump form in his throat. He hadn't expected such a heartfelt response. "I'm just glad I could help, Henry. But what I gave you, it was nothing compared to what you've done with it." Henry shook his head. "That's the thing. It wasn't about the money. It was about what you saw in me. You didn't look at me like I was just another homeless guy. You treated me like I had value. That gave me hope, and that's what helped me change." Nathan sat back, a smile forming on his face. He'd learned more from Henry than he could ever imagine. "I guess we both got something out of that day." Henry smiled in return. "I think so, yeah." Nathan stood up, offering his hand. "I'm proud of you, Henry. Keep doing what you're doing." Henry grasped his hand firmly. "Thanks, Nathan. You've got your own journey ahead, and I know you'll find it. You've already started." As they parted ways, Nathan watched Henry walk out of his office with a sense of peace that he hadn't felt in years. Henry had come to him as a stranger, but now he was a reminder that sometimes the most important lessons in life came from the most unexpected places. In that brief encounter, both men had found something far more valuable than success or wealth. They had found clarity, purpose, and the understanding that true fulfillment doesn't come from what you own, but from how you live and what you give to others. Nathan had helped Henry find his way, but in doing so, he had also found his own path toward the peace he had been seeking.